Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
Hey, Wes, how are you?
Hey, how are you?
I just want to let everyone know I just started live streaming the video on YouTube. Would you guys like me to on the screen?
Yes.
Bye.
Jessica, do we have everyone here?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, we're gonna wait 1 minute and then we're gonna get started shortly. Um, Jessica, I'm having trouble looking at the agenda. Can you just can you zoom in a little bit? Okay, we're gonna get started. Thank you all so much for being here. My name is Owusu Anani. I'm a county council member representing the Pine Hills neighborhood, and it gives me great pleasure to be with you all today. When it comes to the digital divide in the city of Albany, it is no secret we have a long way to go to make some improvements to make sure that everyone in our city have access to affordable and reliable internet in our city. According to the 2010 census, 1/3 of our residents don't have access to the internet. And that is the impetus for wanting to put a commission together to come up with a feasibility and logistics resolution to figure out how we can provide a municipal run city owned internet in the city of Albany. Many of the providers in the city, quite frankly, has made it very clear that they have no interest of providing affordable and reliable internet in our city. And when the private sector fails to act, I strongly believe government must intervene to level the playing field. First, I want to just congratulate everyone here. You know, we interviewed many of you. We interviewed all of you actually, and you were the best of the best. And I'm really excited to see so many familiar faces. This piece of legislation was introduced 4 years ago, and it took about 3 years just to actually get the legislation passed. There are some people that had some concerns, but ultimately we were able to get it done and put the commission together. During this pandemic, I believe it helped many of my council colleagues come together to realize the importance of having affordable and reliable internet. Whether you are, and I'm probably preaching to the choir when it comes to this, but whether you are looking to apply for a job or to do schoolwork, you need access to the internet. When you're applying for a job with the city of Albany, now most of the job applications online to request for service, see, click, fix. you need access to the internet. To register for a vaccine, you need access to take the vaccine. You need access to the internet. Many of my colleagues believe that we have to not just focus on this generation, but also focus on future generations to level the playing field. And to keep this in mind, currently, 1/3 of our residents don't have access to the internet. So I just want to, again, congratulate and thank you all for being here. So just to kind of get it started, we're just going to go around, just everyone just introduce yourself really quick. And then if you could just talk a little bit more about what you would like to see this commission accomplish. So I see Martin Robertson, if you want to go.
Thank you, Councilman Anani. My name is Martin Robinson, and it's an honor to be selected for this commission. Ultimately, put it plain and simple, my vision for, city-owned municipal internet is quite simply developing a fiber optic system, a fiber optic network. Many cities in the country have developed this network. These fiber optic networks are not, contracted, not really contracted out to other, companies or corporations and stuff, but is basically owned and operated by the cities themselves. And I believe that's probably the most effective way to, if the goal is to provide reliable and affordable internet service to every household in the city, that's the way to do it. And although what I'm suggesting, I think is, a very expensive prospect for a municipality to take on a loan, I think the climate has changed nationally to where you have, state and local government, state and federal government, actively willing to assist with that effort.
Thank you. Anyone want to take the next, Scott?
Sure. Scott Chizumbak. I'm the executive director of the Albany Public Library and a strong advocate for bridging the digital divide and working on digital literacy issues. It's actually been the center of my career since I got my master's 20-something years ago, and I wrote my capstone paper on this. I was also on the last advisory commission, I believe, with IRA that did a study. And what I'd like to see out of this group is a real comparison to what municipalities are out there already doing this type of work, already providing municipal broadband. And if other cities are doing it, how do we scale it so that it fits Albany? So that we actually have a working roadmap moving forward to do this work. And I agree with Martin. I think that it's expensive, but it's worthwhile. And I think now more than ever, there is public support and elected support for this process.
Thank you. You're gonna go with Caitlin.
Hello, my name is Caitlin Monjo. I'm an attorney in real life, and I work for a private healthcare company here in Albany. I agree with everything Martin and Scott have said. I'm sure have less experience in this area than Scott, but I would like to mention in particular that the pandemic has made clear to us how much of our healthcare we can and should be accessing using the internet. For those of you who maybe have healthcare plans that are offered by your employer, you might be finding in the next year or two that virtual first is an option that you're going to be encouraged to use. A huge number of our population have been accessing behavioral healthcare resources using telehealth during the pandemic, and that shows no signs of slowing down either. That's in addition to accessing education. And for those of us who are lucky enough to be able to work flexibly from home, we're finding workers really love and appreciate this flexibility. So whatever we can do to make the option for internet service better, faster, for those of us who live and work here would be great. I hope that this commission will solicit lots of feedback from people who live here, work here, businesses, not-for-profits, all of our local institutions, but most of all, of course, people with families and children in the city.
Craig, Mr. Waltz.
Sure. Hi. Let's say hi. I'm Craig. Hi. I'm Craig Waltz. I live in the 8th ward of the city in the city. I'm a data analysis manager with New York State Tax and Finance, about to retire from that after 30 years doing both project management and data analysis. I'm also a PhD student at SUNY Rockefeller right now, and my main area of research is programs like this, more focused to the cybersecurity side. I see this as a critical component to the mayor's drive to put forth a true and full equity agenda for the city. Without true broadband access, you're never going to have true equity agenda take place here. What I'd like to see from the group is a lot of what Scott was just speaking to. We have quite a few cities relatively close to ours that have all started to pursue a broadband program, a city broadband program. A strong component of what we do should be benchmarking of those programs. What do they do well? What do they not do well? There's no reason for us to step in the same holes that they did when they've mapped them out for us, quite honestly. The other thing that concerns me is what else can we do at the same time to set our program that next step above, and expand the pool of funds that we can access to offset the cost of the program. That's where my area of research comes more into play. One of the concerns about any citywide broadband program is the potential expansion of the threat landscape for a breach, which our city has already seen one. What I would like to see is a free training component made available to all citizens about how to protect themselves if they're online. Many people who have not had access before are coming into a brave new world. There are some very basic steps that we can take to help them manage their data and their access, so that not only do they protect themselves, we have 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 more sets of eyes looking out for our city as well. I think that we can do it. I think that it's achievable, and I think that I read through the report that came out of the first commission, which I thought was very well done. There have been some updates to different sources of funds since that report was done. Money from both the federal and the state level that may now become available to us with the proper nudge to our state reps and our senators and congressmen. For example, from the cybersecurity point of view, there are homeland security grant funds available for this type of cybersecurity training, to protect critical infrastructure, such as a citywide network. This is in response to the growth of threats against cities and localities, libraries, and schools. So this is a thing for us to look at as well. So I'd like to see us develop a true vision not just for what we want to achieve first, but what we want to achieve next. So this becomes a living program that can expand to meet new technology and new needs as they arise. That's it.
Thank you. Next up, Jeff.
Thank you, Councilman. Great to see you. And it's great to hear from everyone. It sounds like we share a lot of similar priorities. My name is Jeff Quain. I am the Director of Operations at J Strategies, a local firm here in Albany. And much like Caitlin mentioned, over the last year with the pandemic, I witnessed how important internet connection is. I oversee events for one of our clients, and we had to switch pretty quickly to virtual options, which would not be easy to do, or even close to a reality without good solid broadband connection here in New York and throughout the country. I agree with Craig. I think it's very important to pursue this from an equity standpoint, to see how we can make sure our entire city is connected and provide that opportunity for a lot of our fellow citizens. Not sure if anyone saw, but Comptroller Tom DiNapoli recently released a study on the availability of broadband throughout the state. And he had 3 pretty good takeaways, which I personally agree with, and I'd like to see us try to address. One of them being accelerating the availability of high-speed internet connection, enhancing access for our low-income households, and improving the affordability of internet. And I think we have an option to do that here. I'd also like to explore any possibility we have to use this to make Albany a smart city and take advantage of the foresight of Mayor Kathy Sheehan, Councilman Anani, and his colleagues, where they bought back our streetlights, and see what opportunities are available there to utilize that and truly spread the connectivity throughout. I'm looking forward to working with all of you and learning some stuff already from your viewpoint. So thank you.
Thank you. Josh?
My name is Josh Tossi. My professional life, I work as a planner with the Capital District Regional Planning Commission. We do a lot of work at the county and regional level for the Capital District, and broadband has been a really hot topic over the past year, especially with the pandemic. Funding and access for everybody has been really prevalent in our field. And then from a personal note, as a resident of Albany, my internet, I've been working from home for the past year and a half, and my internet is terrible. If I make it through this entire meeting without getting booted off, it would be really impressive. So I definitely have lived through the poor internet quality side of this. So I think definitely improving both the quality and access for everybody in the city is super important. And I agree with pretty much what everyone else has said so far.
Josh, just really quick, which company is your internet provider?
Spectrum.
Oh, gotcha. Thank you. Next, Ira.
Hi, I'm Ira Bethia. My day job, I work at the New York State Dormitory Authority. And actually, a couple of weeks after Kathy Sheehan had gotten elected, myself and a fellow colleague, Art Ware, had approached the mayor regarding this concept of being able to create municipally owned and municipally operated internet throughout the entire city. Our purpose for that was to really look at ways in which the Dormitory Authority might be able to help municipalities around the state of New York do some gap bonding, which we had not been doing in this particular area. So we reached out to investment banking firms, the large ones that, in the country, because that's part of what we do at the Dormitory Authority, to see if this was the kind of bond issues that, would hold its own water in the marketplace. And after speaking to a few of the large investment banking firms, they came back to DASNY and said, yeah, we wouldn't do 30-year bonds on these, but we'd certainly do 15-year bonds, 10 and 15-year bonds. So that gave us the drive to start to talk to municipalities all across the state of New York and nationally. And we hooked up with a couple of national known firms, CTC, which was a firm that did the first study for Google Fiber in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Jim Boiler, who worked on the legal side, both at the federal level and at the state levels in many states, to change legislation so that municipalities would have an easier time being able to bring in, municipalities being able to bring in a fiber or internet or broadband. This really is a mission of mine that's dear to my heart because I've experienced not being able to have access, right? My kids have always had it, but I've talked to some young kids and I've asked them to do certain things and I find out, wow, they don't even have internet at home and they're high school students. And that to me was like mind boggling. Like, how do you get to high school and don't have internet access in this day and age? So that just drove me to kind of begin to look at things in a more aggressive way. For me, it's all about fiber. I always like to give this analogy. We have a highway that goes from throughway that goes from New York to Albany, and you could do that in about 2.5 hours pretty reasonably, 3 lanes on each side. Imagine if you had 600 lanes on each side and you could get to New York instead of 2.5 hours in 0.9 seconds, right? I mean, that's the kind of comparisons with hundreds of more on-ramp ways to get on and off the highway. So capacity is what's most important, and you get that capacity with fiber. And I think fiber to every home and fiber to every premise is essential. It's essential to the growth of our city, right? So if you look at other cities that have been successfully doing this, even small cities, smaller than Albany, they've been able to attract small businesses. You've been able to see a lot of growth economically, just a lot of job growth, business growth, small business growth, large business growth. We're fortunate here in the Capital Region because we have the largest, the anchor institutions here are, both the healthcare system and government, which I know I work at the Dormitory Authority, and we still get frustrated with Verizon and what we have to do and where the lines begin and the lines end, right? I think every state agency would love to be a part of this. All the colleges and universities as anchor institutions, and myself and Art Ware have been around the state pitching this idea. And really getting an enormous response. And at some point we had an administration change at the authority and it no longer became a priority, but it is a priority for society. We read a number of books, went to a gazillion conferences over a 4 or 5 year period, just to get a grasp of what things are changing. We used to do a dig once policy whenever we break up the ground. Now we realize we can do a 4-inch trench along the ground and we don't have to go 4 feet into the ground, because fiber doesn't freeze, right? So it doesn't have to be below the frost line. There's so many different changes that have happened that can make this a real reality. In addition to Thruway Authority, most people may not know this, but they have 524 miles of dark fiber across on the Thruway. And they went back and put in that dark fiber, particularly for the purpose of being able to lease that dark fiber to municipalities that wanted it at a very cheap and low cost rate. And here we are right at the cusp of where the Thruway Authority is, and we haven't taken advantage of it. I was on the committee with Scott. It was a good study, but I was disappointed in the fact that we didn't have a multi-year plan moving forward. This is not something that can happen in a year or 2 years. This is like a 5, 7, 10-year plan to really make this a reality and to do it correctly. So I'm looking forward to working with all of you and seeing this come to fruition.
Thank you. Ms. Bowles?
Oh, you said Bowles. Okay. No, you're funny. Hello. Just make sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Well, hello, everyone. I'm grateful and honored to be a part of this commission. My name is Diana. I'm also known by my first name, Fatima. I'm an Albany native. I graduated from Russell Sage College with a bachelor's degree in computer science and minor in visual arts. I have about 10 years experience as an IT professional for companies serving various industries. Within the wide IT spectrum, my discipline and specialization, I would consider is web development and networking. Also too, on the side, I'm involved in several local and history nonprofits. I'm a Jill of all trades, but my current day job is working for Albany Public Library. Hi, Scott. As I made a slight transition from IT to information science to serve like education. My overall vision for the commission, internet access is important. The internet has been crucial in the evolution of our education system. And the pandemic has definitely solidified that, our personal lives and business operations. I see a connection with a better educated population leading to economic development for our communities. The residents need an affordable alternative and business need a decent solution to really thrive, especially now. Most of their operations is done online. Is no even longer optional to be analog right now at this point. So I see a city provided internet service is possible for Albany because first of all, we have the talent right here in our backyard to develop it and maintain its infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Ed. Ed Hernandez.
Hello, everybody. Hi, my name is Ed Hernandez. By day, I work for New York State Preferred Source Program for the Blind. And one of the things that got me involved in wanting to be part of this group is that maybe 16 months ago, I was working for one of those companies that has an opportunity or had an opportunity to provide internet for our city. And I've had 12 years experience of working for various companies in sales and management. You know, I've seen the other side on how those companies make decisions on how they're going to move forward with projects and why they don't. And, you know, it's looking at it from a human aspect. You know, I agree with what Councilman Anani said. You know, the role of government is to step in and when the private sector doesn't do something, to be able to help our most needy citizens and the people who can do for themselves. You know, we need to step up and do what we can to help them out and bring them to a place where they can be successful. You know, and making this transition in my life to do that professionally, and I think this is a great next step to be able to contribute to my city and to my fellow citizens. You know, and what I would like to see, you know, going forward is for us to find a solution, you know, be it fiber or any other solution that's going to benefit our citizens and our city and move us forward.
Thank you. And then I'd like to also, we have Luke from IT who's also with us, who's going to be helping with this commission. So Luke.
I'm Luke. I'm with the City of Albany IT department, and I'm here to advise everybody on the more technical aspects. If I don't have an answer, I'm happy to go get it. But if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to help out. And I'm very excited for the project as a whole.
Thank you so much. So the message is clear from hearing from everyone, right? Internet is an essential part of everyday life. It's important to have access to this, whether you're looking for a job or in the education field, or even for the vaccine, if you're applying for to take vaccine. I heard some key terms that I'm strongly supporting. I hope that we all keep in mind, which is equity. When we talk about equity, we have to make sure that we lift everyone out of the shadows, but also taking care of neighborhoods and marginalized communities that have been neglected for years. When you look at the 1/3 of people in the city of Albany don't have access to the internet, then you make a comparison to what percentage of that demographic, we know which communities we're talking about. And we want to make sure, particularly in these times that we're in with the violence, the unemployment rate, we have to make sure that we're educating our kids and that they have access to the wealth of knowledge that exists. But also on a city standpoint, if we are able to have a municipal run internet like Chattanooga, Tennessee, the amount of jobs, we can have our own center right here in the city of Albany, put people to work right here in our city. Cities and towns that have municipal run internet, you have a business climate, you have business moving into those cities to make sure, because it's a benefit, not just for businesses, but it's also a benefit for the city. It increase our tax base. And quite frankly, I think that we could be the Chattanooga of the state of New York, where we have individuals come in. Right now, our census, we had 97,000 residents. We could get to 100,000 residents if we're able to achieve this. The council and administration message is clear. We want to have a municipal run internet similar to departments like the water department right here in our city. And as I was reading earlier today, I was reading a quote by Nelson Mandela. A winner is someone that keeps the dream alive. And we have to keep this alive. I think as the time has come for us to be intentional about addressing the digital divide. And I'm glad to be in this fight, in this struggle and advocacy with many of you in here. So next we're going to talk about elections. I would just open it to the floor. If anyone is interested in being a co-chair or even a chair, and then we're just going to take it from there. Is there anyone that would like to serve on the leadership of the Municipal Service Commission?
Chief, let's say most of this is Craig. I'd be willing to be a chair or the co-chair. The one advantage to being retired within the next 30 days is I have a lot more time on my hands. And with that, given where I'm, given the research program that I'm doing, I want to say my PhD advisor has just been made the research director for the Center for Technology. Mila Gasco, and actually the head of the Center for Technology is a prof for the course I'm taking now about how to manage this type of program. That would be Ramon Gil Garcia, who is recognized worldwide for smart city research.
Yeah.
So I have a direct channel to both of them to bring their expertise to bear, and I'm sure that they would love to have a program here that reflects the best of the research that they've found, and they would make that fully available to us. Because I know that SUNY has partnered with the last commission, and I would expect that they would want to do the same now. Just to sort of build on what you said, I believe it's critical to have, as we've all said, a long-term vision for where this program program goes. We are the city for the state of New York that people look to, outside of New York City, of course. We have led the way in this nation since before it was a nation, starting with the Plan of Union that became the basis for the U.S. Constitution that followed later. There's no reason that we can't have a broadband program that creates the same vision for where cities of our size and bigger should go for the next 5 years, the next 10 years, the next 20 years, and give our students and adults in all levels the chance to have a true life, to have that chance to build themselves up in a way that shows respect, in a way that shows a distribution of city resources across our entire city, not just certain areas of it. I came up from some of those rough areas. I'm very lucky to be where I am now. I know the importance of this to all of us. And I have no children, okay? So I'm doing this purely because it's the right thing to do. This is my child, okay? And I want to see it grow up well.
Thank you. I mean, that was quite impressive, actually. Your connection to the government connections is pretty solid, and I want to thank you for that. And also, congratulations on your retirement. Is there anyone else that will show interest and maybe wanted to be a co-chair?
I'll throw my name in the hat. Okay. My name in the hat. Yeah, I've done a lot of work in this area as well, and also have a lot of national connections. As Scott, we brought in a few people during that first round of the commission when we set up the study, and I just think that on the digital divide is the main reason how I even got here. I'm just experiencing young people not being able to get in drove me to this point. I also have a background in IT. I've been doing it for 30 years. I could retire in January. I'm not sure I will yet, but I'm close to it. So I would have more time if this is a multi-year project. I would have a lot more time to contribute to it. I do have a degree in applied mathematics, and this has been a passion of mine for 8 years. Even though when Albany was stalled in this arena, I was up in Rochester, where they have done a phenomenal job in Rochester, getting their systems up and running, their infrastructure built out. And I've seen some of the changes. I've been on, like I said, a lot of conferences and seen the work that people have been doing over the past 20 years just to make some of these things possible in small cities. So I'd throw my name in the hat as well.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that's interested?
Yeah, Councilman, I'd like to put my name forward. Certainly Craig and Ira have very impressive backgrounds and knowledge of the subject. My background and expertise to a certain degree comes from, some of my past jobs working for the state of New York. I have pretty good relationships with most of the businesses and local elected officials here in Albany and the region. So I'm happy to use that experience and knowledge of how the city works, how the county works, how a lot of our folks interact to help further the commission, help further this priority for the city in front of the state, in front of the county, in front of the region.
All right, thank you. So about to close nominations unless anyone would like to put their head in there.
Ladies would like to
All right.
balance things out for us.
So this commission to be run by the people who are majority of the people who are appointed by the mayor and also the council. I'm here just for today, and also I'll be joining on many of the meetings moving forward. So right now at this moment, I think with 3 candidates, choose the election. Luke, what would you suggest?
What do you mean choose the election? How do you?
Well, essentially just to pick the co-chair.
What's that?
To make a decision on co-chair, are we gonna just take a vote? Everyone is comfortable with taking a vote? Or if there's individuals that want to ask questions to some of the candidates who are interested in being co-chairs?
I mean, I'm not the parliamentarian. I'm the IT department representative.
Gotcha.
But I mean, it's among the body. I mean, just take a vote and start at the top and then work your way down to from chairs to co-chairs would be. Martin?
I mean, would it be best if we just designated someone to, just count the votes, maybe Luke or Sue, and we just choose that way?
Or you could literally just throw names in a hat and somebody could pick. Hey, I'm just keeping it simple.
Councilman, I'd like to suggest maybe we work it so that a co-chair is the 2 co-chairs. It's one that was appointed by the mayor and one appointed by the council.
Okay, that's a good suggestion. That's a good point, valid point. So just to look at our list, I believe Ira was appointed by the council. Craig was also appointed by the mayor. And Jeff also by the mayor. All right, sounds good. So what we're going to do right now, I think is
Council members, should we then divide the votes up by those who are appointed by council and those who are appointed by mayor?
No, so that was I'd like to thank Jeff for his opinion and recommendation. But I think that I believe that with the comments that were made and also the kind of statements were made by the individuals who are interested, if any individuals want to ask questions of those candidates, and then we'll take it from there from a vote. Me personally, I don't believe that whoever was appointed by the mayor or whoever appointed by the council, we should make a decision on that. I think we should make a decision on what members of this commission believe is a step in the right direction. So the best fit to lead such an important commission, and everyone is well accomplished here. So I will take it from there. So right now I will open up to anyone that would like to ask any of the candidates questions, and then we're going to take a vote on everyone who's interested in voting for a specific candidate.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to add that Mila is awesome. And if we can get her involvement at all in this, that would be fantastic. She's one of my professors and has done a lot of work on smart cities, recently presented and did a study on how public libraries can involve themselves in smart cities, and just is an extremely impressive person. If we can use her as a resource in any way, it would benefit this commission.
Thank you. So right now the candidates for co-chair is Craig, Jeff, and Ira. If you would like to ask a question to any of the candidates, just raise your hand. Josh?
Oh, sorry, I was just adjusting my glasses.
Gotcha. Luke?
I actually do have a question. I mean, there's been a lot of people throwing around the word high speed, and I think that's important to define. I think there's a pretty clear threshold, but I'd be curious to hear what the three candidates consider, qualifying for high speed.
Yeah, gigabyte speed.
All right, so we're gonna go down the list. Craig? Craig, you're muted.
You're muted.
Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. I would agree with Ira. I mean, looking at the standards right now, the U.S. Department of the Treasury, the U.S. Department of the Treasury issued a preliminary rule, which actually a lot of cities are very concerned about the ability to use certain funds for this type of initiative. They're saying it between 25 and 100, between 25 and 100. I tend to lean towards the high end. The faster, the better. Right now, if we do the FTTH, I think we can get true high speed, and that would be where I'd lean. Certainly, the cost is a concern, but if we draw on a sufficient pool of funding sources, and then create a structure moving forward, we can get the money. I mean, I think that would be an investment that would actually draw both state and federal money into the city, which we all know we are dramatically shortened on that quite often each year. And it would give our mayor one more tool that she can take up the hill to bring more money home in a way that's meaningful for all city residents. But yeah, I would lean high. I'd go to the 100. That's me.
Thank you. Ira?
Yeah, if you're doing fiber, that's gigabyte speed. You really just, we're talking about a long-term gain and benefit for the city. And it doesn't make, well, I won't say it doesn't make sense, but if it's doable and if fiber is available and if we build out a fiber infrastructure, that's where I'd like to see this city. That's where we get the biggest bang for the buck. That's where the Google cities are, the cities of the future. If you go into Asia, if you go to India, you'll see that, they're building out infrastructure. Europe, all of their infrastructure is fiber, all of it. We're like, the reason why we don't have fiber here is because the incumbents are getting top dollar for, non-fiber services. They're not willing to change until something like this happens, where if municipalities start to make those inroads and start to control, this vital resource, those incumbents will then ultimately decide that they need to help to build out that infrastructure. So we have to go with fiber. We have to go with gigabyte speed, fiber to the home and fiber to the premises. Colleges and universities here need it. Hospitals need it. Every kind of institution needs it. And certainly, that digital divide really would level the playing field. You don't want one set of people to have one kind of speed and another set to have another. You've still then created a digital divide.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, certainly the gig by connection. I think the comptroller suggested that the state should aim for 1,000 megabits per second. So I think that's certainly something we should aim for. I think as part of this, we should also ask some of the industries here in the region that we might want to bring to the city, whether it's the growing gaming industry, whether it's some of the folks up at Nano, some of the companies that we want to grow out of our incubators. So I think as part of this, I'd want to look at what do these companies need? What do these industries need that we already have in the region, in our city, that we can help grow through this endeavor?
Thank you. Any more questions for the candidates? Okay, Maureen?
I do have one question. I was just wondering, what are your thoughts on, perhaps, working with, telecom companies on, wireless internet services? I know, I think Jeff, you had mentioned, about the street lights that were installed in the city, and so using them as a conduit. So what are your thoughts on, say, working with, one of the mobile providers to reach this goal?
All right, we're going to start with Jeff.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. I certainly think we should be open to that. I'd want to be careful that we aren't doing any type of agreement, exclusivity agreement with one carrier. If we have the option to bring different companies in that can all offer different services, and give folks an option, I certainly want to take a look at that, as well as following through on our mission, which is a municipal owned service. But I don't think that there's any reason we can't take a look at both in tandem.
Ira?
Yep. So one of the ways you can accomplish what you're talking about, Martin, is this. That last mile tends to be the most expensive process, right? By last mile, meaning to get it from your core infrastructure to the actual premise itself. You can set up a competitive environment for bidding for that last mile work, whether it be for wireless or whether it be just, fiber directly to the home. You want to create a competitive environment. As you've said, the reason why the city of Albany is stuck in its current scenario is that before Jerry Jennings left, he signed a 10-year agreement with Time Warner Cable, which was then signed again. So you have no competition. The purpose of this, I think part of what the purpose of this commission should be is to figure out how we create competition so that we can lower costs for those services like mobile, wireless services, and other kinds of services that are necessary, right? But our key goal here is to help to bring resources to build that main infrastructure and then figure out how we get to that last mile, right, through a very competitive process. That's what most municipalities have been doing. And if you really think about this, this can be a revenue generator for the city, not necessarily a negative, right? When you're able to do it in a competitive way and you guarantee certain things to certain companies, if they're competitively advantaged, then they may have to do some what we call community benefit in order for the city to gain some revenue from this. So I'd like to see that revenue side done. But to more directly answer your question, yeah, wireless is essential, right? I mean, it's essential everywhere. People are not necessarily tethered any longer, to just their dorm room or their library. They're everywhere, and that has to be a part of this process.
Thank you. Craig?
Yes, again, I find myself agreeing with Ira and with Jeff. I think a competitive environment is critical. I have the benefit of being one of the few people sitting here who, at the time the last cable agreement was done with the city of Albany, actively opposed that agreement because there should not be an exclusive agreement with one company. You are basically giving them your full access to your checking account and saying, go ahead and spend anything you want. and we're accepting pennies in return. I mean, literally pennies in pennies in return for consistently substandard service. I mean, I think Josh can attest to that. I can attest to that. And we can do better. We've seen a growth in the use of in the more effective use of community benefit agreements across the past 10 years. The mayor had been advised of that at that time. The council was advised of that at that time. They chose to play the safe card, as they said, and we're left to reap the benefit or lack thereof now. So if we look at lessons learned, that's a big lesson that we should have learned. We have the chance now to move ahead better, strategically, proactively, rather than reactively.
Yep.
And I think that that's critical. Yeah, the last mile is critical. There are a lot of ways to get there. There's some interesting things going on with Lee, with Cambridge, Chattanooga, Rochester. And that's just here in the US. We have a tremendous amount of resources here that are not being brought to bear on this. And yes, we could create a fee structure where there's more money coming into the city in exchange for access to the pool of clients that these providers would serve. We would act as the middleman to get a benefit for those that would access the service, and as the person who would create the channels for that access, using the technology that would be within our control. Once it's built, we own it. We can create maintenance agreements for it. We can create fees for it, but the structure of government would lend itself to this sort of public-private partnership moving forward. And I think that's one of the things that we should be taking a hard look at. That's my two cents.
All right, thank you. So, any further questions? If not, we're just gonna go down the line. Oh, Kaylin?
I haven't used the raised hand function. So as the non-IT professional and layperson in this group, I'm curious to know how you prospective chairs would run a meeting and how you anticipate generating the final report. So what do you think the division of labor would be? How often would you like to meet? How would you like to communicate with everybody in this group and in the public?
So one of the things that, let me start with the public piece, because that's critical, right? Most people don't understand what we're talking about here. And they may understand that there's an impact to them, but they certainly don't understand the concept of gigabyte versus megabyte speed. They're paying for what they get and so forth. So as an entity, we need to do a significant marketing campaign in simple terms, just like the analogy that I gave, so that the public gets it, because we're going to need that kind of public support in order to move this forward, in order for this to actually work, right? If the public isn't behind it, and if we could do all of this infrastructure stuff, but if people don't buy into the service, then our service is for naught, right? If they think that the incumbent's are the only place that they can go. In terms of running meetings and how frequently we should be meeting, I think in every 2-week basis, but I think the chairs and the co-chairs actually would have a lot more work to do behind the scenes, coming up to these meetings. Critical for us to identify, what resources are going to be available, when those resources are available, doing the preparation work to make sure that we're in a position to go after those things. So we've got some top-down stuff that we really do need to get in place. I'm not sure what the city's resources are in terms of helping us there, but we need to kind of set an agenda and some goals. We need to look at what other cities have done. And I think this is where I do have some experience in terms of how they've run their municipal broadband outreaches to their communities and how they've structured their meetings. There's a lot of that information available, what works and what doesn't work. So we don't want to try to recreate the wheel here. We want to look at where those places that have had great successes, where we can bring that here and do likewise. But there is a lot of public work to be done. Don't fool yourselves. It's not just a few of us in a room that are going to make this happen, right? And especially with our anchor institutions, because one of the things that I did at the authority when we first started out on this mission is we called around the entire state up Western New York, every place that we could find anchor institutions. And we would present this idea of municipally owned, municipally operated broadband. They didn't know what we were talking about. And we'd send them literature and information. And inevitably, 2 or 3 weeks later, they'd call us up at the authority and say, well, how can we get you guys to finance it? We did a great marketing plan to these institutions and educating them in the process. That's going to be critical for this body to understand that has to be done, even with folks that you may think, would be familiar with what we're doing here, what we're trying to do here. Just because, maybe their businesses do depend a lot on that infrastructure, but they might only just see it as a benefit for themselves, and we have to show them how it's a benefit for the entire community. So we have a lot of work to do as a body, and I think the chairs and co-chairs are going to need to be carrying a large load of that, making sure that we hit certain milestones and so forth, and that we really do have a game plan, a real schedule on what things we can accomplish and how we can accomplish them that's agreed upon by this entire body. Almost like a project plan in a sense. Did I miss any part of your question?
Yep, correct.
Again, I find myself building on some of what I just said, to be honest, which makes me feel better about what I'm about to say. In my professional experience, I would say we have to have a project plan for, let's say, where we sketch out what our short and long-term goals are. That should be done as part of the group. I'd like to see working groups set up for the different tasks to manage things moving forward as we move ahead. I agree. The full group would probably meet on a bi-weekly basis, and additionally as needed. But I think that the chairs would meet more often than that to keep tasks moving ahead. The heads of the working groups would have the control within their group in consultation with the full group to move ahead with the tasks within their area. For instance, a benchmarking work group would set out the list of where they propose us to go, who they propose to reach out to. They would take in input from the full group, of course, and then we would move ahead with that. The idea is to create a stepped approach, exactly like a project plan, more along the lines of the type of interactive model for IT strategy management to move the project ahead. That's my vision for it. But I think open communication between all the people that form this group is critical. No one has the corner on innovation. No one has the corner on knowledge. You said you're the least technical person here. Well, yours is critical per perspective, because that's who we're creating this for. People who come from a non-tech environment, we have to be able to do it in a way that you say, okay, that makes sense to me. That's what you want to do. Okay, I'm on board with that. You are the person that we're actually doing this for. So that's my feeling on it.
I have a quick question too, just to piggyback off of Craig. As a service and in terms of speed, what would you consider a decent baseline speed? Because realistically, it's hard trying to squeeze an orange through a straw. Do you think like 15 megabits per second to like 75 megabits per second? Because realistically, that's the average right now in most households. Is that a decent start, or should Albany start higher to remain competitive?
I'll take this one. I'll take the lead, and Caitlin, I'll answer your question quickly. As far as the baseline, I think we should go above what's the average throughout the state. This is a great opportunity to act as leader, act as model for not only the rest of the state, the Northeast, the country. As I think more and more cities, municipalities, and states and counties, whatever the local body is, will start looking to this. As far as running a meeting, the enacting legislation gives us 120 days to submit a preliminary report. So we certainly have our work cut out for us. I think, as folks said, bi-weekly meeting is ideal. I would want to perhaps talk about doing maybe a workshop type where we can have folks come talk, and then maybe a more official meeting where we potentially take action on any of the different subdivisions that we're charged to do. We do have 150 days after the submission of the preliminary report to issue the final report. So I think we have a little more time there. I think it's important that we follow Robert's rules as much as possible for our meeting, just to give it some type of semblance. And as far as division of duties, the enacting legislation gives us 7 different areas that we are looking to report on. So, I think we want to break it up along those lines where needed. And, maybe some of them won't be as labor intensive, so we can take care of those quickly. But I think the Common Council did a great job of giving us an outline. So I would take it from there and follow those areas and focus on that.
Any other further questions?
Councilman, I have one more question, and it's for all 3. Would any of you be open to the idea of exploring a sliding scale cost of internet based on income and based on students who are in our school district? Looking at the other municipal provided connections out there, some of them are relatively costly, and I'm wondering if one way that we can solve some of these issues is to have a sliding scale based on home income or whether or not they have a student in the school district. And some are looking for smaller connections. It's about connecting to email and Google Classroom, which doesn't need as high of a connection as some of you have quoted. So also a tiers of service based on income and based on need.
I'd like to take that first, if I may, Scott. Yes, I think that's one way that we can go. My concern with that is, again, creating, as Ira said earlier, you'd still continue to have that divide, and that is one of the risks. So I think if we were to consider that, we need to be very careful about what we're doing. If you want to slide the cost, yes. If you want to slide the service speed, no. It should have the same speed across the board available to them. They may not utilize it as thoroughly, but the capacity should be there. We can never truly know the intent of a person. We just can't. But we can know the capacity. That's Patton, was pretty good at this kind of thing, as far as strategy goes. So if we have the capacity, we say we can give you this capacity, but we recognize that right now you can't afford $1,000 a month to do this. That's out of the question. But you can afford this, great. We can look at that. And I think one of the ways to offset that is to look at what fee structure can we create in place to provide the funds necessary to make that a truly flexible scale. I like the idea of targeting it to students in the school in the schools. I think that's an excellent idea. Because certainly we saw that we could get computers out to our students when the pandemic hit. It took a while, but we could do it. What we couldn't get all the time was the access to the internet. That's ridiculous. We're supposed to be the capital of New York State. We're not some Stone Age place in the middle of nowhere. We can do better. So yeah, I think we can do it. But as I say, on cost, yes. On capacity, no. I think we need to maintain that balance.
Thank you.
And I'll just say I concur with everything that Craig said. It's a slippery slope when you start to look at it. That's where, again, it's a natural human tendency in a capitalist society that says you can't afford X, so therefore you'll get,
Ira, you were in those meetings. You probably know why. Probably know why I'm asking.
I know why. So I'll just concur with Craig.
And I'll just add, I think we should have all the options on the table for this. And part of our charge is looking at partnerships with schools, libraries, nonprofits, whatever that may be. So if there's an opportunity to offset some of the costs there, if there's an opportunity to engage our state delegation about funding in the upcoming budget, then let's do that. I want to be careful, of course. If everyone remembers when New York mandated the $15 broadband access service, the telecommunication company sued and put a hold on it. So, I want to make sure whatever we're doing with the help of Corporation Counsel or Caitlin as our resident law expert, whoever that may be, we're making sure we're doing everything within the law and we're not facing any type of issues as the state saw with their efforts.
Can I just interject and say I was delighted to hear anyone mention Robert's rules because I always have them.
All right, thank you so much. And now we're just gonna go down, taking the votes. Sorry, don't mind my dog. All right, so just a show of hands, and I'm just gonna say the candidate's name. First, we're gonna go with Craig Welch. Okay, that is 5. Ira Bethia. All right. And then we're gonna go to Jeff. All right.
Are we voting once or twice?
Just one, yeah, it's just once. So essentially, right now the results: Ira received 7 votes, Craig 5, Jeff 1. So what I suggest is that we name Ira the chair of the commission, and then Craig will also be the co-chair. Is everyone okay? All right. Ira, you look like you're confused.
No, I didn't know we were doing, I thought we were just doing 2 co-chairs, but
Yeah, I agree, but I think it's important to have a leader who's going to continue with the vision, but just kind of essentially work very close with the co-chair to come up with the agenda and whatever decision that you guys come up with moving forward. So with that, we're gonna go to next to figure out who will be compiling minutes, taking, sorry about that, who'll be taking meeting minutes and distributed minutes to the rest of the members of this commission. Me personally, I think the chair should be doing it, but if there's anyone that's interested in doing that task, any takers?
I'd be happy to help as an amateur parliamentarian.
Thank you, Kaylin.
I guess I better brush up on my parliamentarian skills, rules and stuff, so I'll do that.
All right, so that's Kaylin. All right, any other ones? All right, Kaylin, all right. All right, next we're gonna, on the agenda, is we're gonna talk about how frequent we all wanna meet. I know there's some people when they were running talking about suggestions and recommendations. I would like to just hear from everyone what time works for most people or any suggestions.
I have a question about meeting.
Yes, correct.
Do we know if all of our meetings are going to be on Zoom or are we going to be meeting in person at any point?
That's actually a good question. I don't have the answer to that, but if you guys are comfortable meeting in person, I can make that accessible. If you guys are comfortable meeting via Zoom, that's also another option. But I think ultimately it will be, if we can abide by COVID restrictions and guidelines, I'll be more than happy to meet in person with many of you or just set up a meeting, especially when we're dealing with the public. But whatever works for majority of the members.
So council member, just so everybody knows, the change in open meetings law is allowed until I believe January 5th.
That is
And
correct.
that allows for a hybrid option or a completely virtual option, and of course, in-person option. I'm a big fan of virtual because it just means I can go to many meetings in one evening because I have a meeting in about 15 minutes that I have to go to. So I'm always a big fan of virtual just because I'm like being safe in a pandemic and also like to triple book myself. So
Awesome.
I just like to say, one, I agree with Scott. I think for the time being, to keep people safe, we should do the virtual option. When we can, it would be good to do a hybrid environment or an in-person meeting. Certainly, when we start to outreach to more people, or certain types of tasks will just lend themselves to being in person. The only thing I'd add is the only nights that I'm personally not available are Monday nights and Thursday nights this semester because I'm in class, and they sort of frown on me doing meetings in the middle of class. But beyond that, I'm fully available day or night.
Okay, great. I'm just gonna throw out some dates. October 5th, does that work? 2 weeks from, is that 2 weeks from now? Same time?
I'm fine with that.
if it's the same time, that's perfect.
Yeah, it looks like that's majority. Everybody is nodding their head saying yes. All right. All right, perfect. Perfect.
And if we could avoid the second Tuesday of every month, that's Board of Trustees meeting for the library. I can't miss that one.
Gotcha. Well, that would conclude, but I just want to say thank you all so much for your commitment to such an important issue. The legislation mission is for put a commission together to do the feasibility, logistics, and financing study of a city-owned and operated municipal internet. And I just want to stress that, and I hope that everyone is keeping that in mind. So looks like October 5th is going to be our next meeting, and the chairs and co-chairs will send out all that information. Also, Caitlin, we will also set up a conference call with us three, and you guys will be taking the lead moving forward. Again, just thank every single one of you. Know that you are going to make a difference. And on behalf of all the residents of the city of Albany, we thank you. We thank you. We thank you. So anybody don't have any new business, just want to say thank you all so much.
Good night, everybody.
Nice to meet you all. Good night.